Hi there. Welcome to. Voice is already cracking. It's one of those. It's dry here. It's or at least dry in the house. But hi. How you been? Welcome to another episode of Power Podcast. I'm Taylor, one of your hosts, and with me is what kind of words that I can. Let's see. I know. I got a good one. I've got with me here the itinerant, the traveler, the what's the word? Propinquity? Yeah, there we go. Propinquity of my heart, the nearness of my heart. Mr. Sushi Buddy, how you doing?
The proprietor?
No, not the proprietor, the propinquity. Propinquity. It's a new one. Trying to exercise my vocabularies.
Yeah, well done. Better than I.
So, I like itinerant. Itinerant is a good one. Traveling from place to place. So I could have said votive. Like a mist. Votive would have been another good one because that's designed to fulfill a promise or like you're expressing devotion.
Nice.
So
unfamiliar word to me, but that's a nice word.
It is a very nice one. So
a little maybe too romantic for us, but.
But yeah, that's not the point of this, particularly this episode. That's for certain. But first off, how you be?
I'm doing all right. Aside from some unfortunate microdust, that's kind of got me locked into the house just because it's quite strong right now. But otherwise, things are going well. So, how about yourself?
I'm doing well. I guess. Outside of being a little dry in the house, I'm doing all right. But yeah, so today we're kind of shifting gears back to the other kind of, because for a while there we've been punching out some of the portable episodes of
that we have.
Well, we're gonna throw you a curveball and go differently, because I know I've gotten a few comments, not so much on there have been some on the YouTube page or the videos and stuff, and thank you for that, people. But also got some comments from people through like Skype or chatting and stuff where they said that they've kind of gone back and listened to some of those older ones. Well, not the older oones, but like the ones
where we first sort of made the change.
Right. And they actually kind of like that a bit more because it's different, I guess.
That's interesting.
I don't
never mentioned that to me. It's the first time I'm hearing this. So.
Well, I guess because I don't want to say like different's not the best word for it, but just it's not as bark. Yeah, that's it. It's not as bark, but no, it's just not as. I don't say it's more personal, but it's also not as timed, because we're with like games and stuff, when we have like a certain topic. If there's a game that comes out after that topic, we've done that.
Right.
That it could change and that sort of thing.
Sure.
Or
a little less constraint, I guess.
Game. Right. And I think it's also, if it's something, particularly with like some of the game stuff, like if it's not an aspect of a game they're interested in, then it's completely not interesting to them. But if it's something like the death one that we did,
right,
that's one that came up in the conversation, was that the death one was very interesting just because you don't talk about death a lot. So.
Sure, I think we did. We did look at some different aspects of death there. We kind of looked at humor and so forth. So.
But basically what I'm trying to get at with that long derailment is that if anybody goes back and listens to them or something, totally leave comments and stuff. I'll see the update for it, and they'll be like, "There's a new comment," and I'll be like, "Okay, click," and then of course I can let you know, Mr. Sushi Bee, and then you can also join the conversational fun.
I'm trying to do my best to do that. So we have had a few more comments with the portables, and you'll point them out to me, because sometimes I do miss them if they've been up for a while and whatnot, and I don't get those notifications sometimes. So I do like to go back and see whenever I do get comments, which is awesome. It gets me really fired up and It's nice to get comments about what people actually feel about the things we're doing, and actually I just like learning about other people too. So
Cough, cough, kid koala, and your total bias towards being with sushi. And
yeah, that was an interesting one. What can we do? There's not much you can do about that.
Kidding aside, that's cool. I'm just teasing. But this and this kind of the conversation for today kind of wraps into that too, because this is something that we're doing, so it might as well just come out with it and stop kind of tap dancing around it. That is, we're talking about personal improvement.
Yes.
Gonna get personal.
Pretty sure that wasn't the song, but
I know it wasn't. But I don't even know who the hell sings that song. I just like that's the only clip of that
John.
How do you even know that?
Because she didn't do a hell of a lot after Grease, from what I know. As far as I know, I'm pretty sure it's her.
There's some low blows there.
Sorry, Miss John. Olivia,
but
John. Anyways, whatever.
Right. Personal improvements. So, if you've got any sort of comments about personal improvement, or if you want to berate the things that we wish to personally improve on, totally give us comments. I'll also have my Twitter handle down there, so if you want to either directly message or tell me how much of a loser I am on there, you can totally do it there. So
you're welcome to put my comments there as well, because I don't use Twitter.
Well, right, yeah. So if you do, I'll totally guise them as comments towards Sushi.
Sure.
And then he'll just feel the brunt of it all.
I can handle it.
Right. So, did you want to start off, or would you prefer that I kind of kick this?
I'm perfectly fine with you starting if you wanted to take the reins.
Okay. So this is something I've noticed since, shameless plug, I guess, since I started doing that weekly thing recently, the Rambling Weekly stuff.
Right.
And you've mentioned this before about how, because you're a bit more meticulous when it comes to editing and stuff.
Unfortunately.
But, well, no, I mean, that's fine. That's, people have different approaches to that. That's totally legit. But I am so loosey-goosey that when I actually started to do that, and the same with the other video, like the games with sharing my passion sort of thing, I actually started editing, particularly those. I edited those, and I realized that the way I talk irritates the fuck out of me. Like, and I'm doing it right now, and I know it bugs the hell out of me, but I seem to have this thing where I'll say a few words, and then I'll kind of have a little bit of a pause, and then I'll say some words, and I'll have some pause, and I'll say some words, and it's just like, say it. I guess that's what it is. Just say the damn thing.
Yeah, we all have our tics, right? When we're speaking or doing any sort of activities or whatever. And some of my tics are when I re-listen to those podcasts and I'm doing the editing and so forth, I found I use the word like very often, or I stutter. So I'll say something, and within that same frame of mind, and you haven't even cut in when I'm checking through the editing, I'll still be talking and I'll reiterate the same word, or at least the same idea. And I notice I do that in my writing as well, and it's extremely annoying when I go through it myself. And I can only imagine it's just unbearable to somebody else who's editing my writing or listening to the podcast. So I'm very cautious about going through the editing process, I suppose, and that's where it comes from, being meticulous. Meticulous, I can't even say the word meticulous. And I think I'm just too self-conscious about it, and I always think, I want to sound a little bit more intelligent isn't the word, but just, I suppose direct. I want more direct and more flow in my speech, and I just sound really bad checking that stuff. And I personally don't think I'm too bad when I'm teaching in front of a class and so forth, but maybe I'm really horrible, and maybe I need to record myself and watch again. But I'm
The
not sure.
cringe.
Yeah. But that goes back to, this idea of personal improvement, and that, I suppose, overcoming a bit of challenges in our own direction. We often sort of fall back on what makes us comfortable, and sometimes we need to break out of that mold, and the only way to do it is by reviewing what we've done. And I think it does help to have somebody else do that, but you also have to do it yourself.
And I think when it comes to something like, and I know it's seen as a bit more of a writing exercise, but like the free flow of conscious writing, or for example, with paintings and stuff, where it's just like paint whatever you feel, and then that's it. And like to me, it's expressive, but it's not really saying anything.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's like how that sort of thing feels, is that it's just kind of coming out. There's no filter. There is no you. It's just unbridled charcoal.
I suppose it can be, but maybe it depends on the individual. Some people probably have a knack for just doing something on a whim, or I wouldn't say on the spotlight or not, but I suppose some people just have that ability to do so.
But I think the thing that I would separate from that are things like whose line is it anyways?
Mm-hmm.
I would not. That to me is not the same, because it's kind of a practice thing. Because if you watch enough of it, you see that they kind of repeat some of the lines or the themes or the vibes. So it's not necessarily just spontaneity. There's some sort of filter coming through. Whereas with those sorts of things, and even with the podcast, because you're talking, so at least your brain is kind of saying, "Hey, you really need to formulate better words," or
try harder, dummy.
Try. Right. I think my brain's given up on that, but it's with that sort of thing, it's just kind of like, eh. And to me, you can't improve that. Mm-hmm. You can't improve just free flow writing, or like painting or something like that. And that's not to condemn it because you can't, but me personally, I see that as like some of the lowest forms of like artistic work being put out there. Expression. Is where it's like, because like I said, you're expressing but you're expressing, but there's no thought to it.
Mm-hmm.
And me personally, I'm kind of the whole I think therefore I am. What's that, cogito ergo sum or something? Mm-hmm. Is that but
Descartes?
Yeah. So that where it lies, like with just talking and stuff like that, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because I'm thinking too much, mm-hmm. or maybe as a kid I just didn't really. I don't think I really talked that much when I was a kid, and I know when I'm editing stuff of my own now, at least, I think what it is that I have absolutely nothing planned.
Yeah. And
so when I start to say stuff, in the middle of it, I'll be like, oh, I've got something, and so I'll kind of do this hiccup where I just, don't say anything, and then I'll carry on, and that sort of thing. It's like, my brain's just kind of like, oh, shit, totally say something about that. Oh, yeah, totally say something about that. And then my whole body just shuts down and goes, duh, oh, okay.
Just a reboot.
Right. My brain is, whenever I'm talking, my brain is consistently rebooting about 100 times in like a 5-minute period.
You get that Mega Man X startup screen that.
Right. Without the cool vibes of technology.
Nice. Well, yeah, I mean, I could see that. I think I sort of understand where you're coming from. I guess going back to what you said about whose line, though, that also has a sort of rules and regulations, if you will, of how those games are played and stuff, right? So maybe that's why the creativity is a little different versus just being on the spot. Like a couple of the things that it's like, was the reporter in the field, and like they know what's coming up, right? They've done these. Maybe the first few episodes it would be really on the spot, but after X number of tries, they only recycle, or sorry, they do recycle X number of those games and maybe throw in a new one once in a while. So, but anyways, moving on from there. I was just kind of curious for yourself. Reflection seems to be a very important aspect to personal improvement. And some people go about this in many different ways. Some people don't reflect at all. They just move on, just constantly sort of moving forward, pressing forward. But personally, I do reflect. I just don't do it on paper, or some people like to keep journals and stuff. But I don't usually write anything down or keep any sort of log or diary. I do like to reflect often, though. But sometimes I wonder when I'm reflecting if I'm just reflecting on what's around me versus my own internal struggles or challenges. I'm just kind of curious what you sort of do with that aspect of reflection and how you feel you reflect.
That's goodness. I probably fall into that former camp of where I don't really reflect on things at all. I really don't. For better or for worse. I really don't. I mean, people who have known for as long as they've known me, like my cousin's even said this before about me. She said that I just kind of grew up real quick. So I just kind of, I have been the same person I have been, maybe not as firebrandy, or the intense sort of laser focus, for lack of a better word, rage is still there when I need it to, but I just don't just kind of just have it constantly going sort of thing. But I really don't. I don't do that with myself. I'm pretty comfortable with myself. For better or for worse. I'm pretty open to people. The only thing I'm not accepting of people is who try to push everything about them onto others. That's really the big pet peeve I have with people.
That's interesting. So I mean, for me, I think reflection can be really important, especially with the field of work I'm in as a teacher. I think it's pretty important to take a look at what you've done in the past and what you could be potentially doing in the future. And I think it helps you find the drive to continue on, because right now, I'm not sure anyone who's listening will know, but the teaching profession has very high attrition rates. A lot of people are burning out within 2-3 years and they're out of the field because it's very challenging, and there's only X amount of support from the school, their peers, potentially family.
Just the public in general. When
sure.
You have, and I use the word pablum very loosely in this context, but when you have things like, what does it go? Those who can't teach. When you have shit like that, it, not setting up a very good pathway for people to want to teach or anything like that.
Right. It's just sort of a fallback. Oh, you could just do that. You make some money that way. Which is an unfortunate sort of opinion to take into account when you think that a lot of people do spend a lot of time training to get into that profession, and it's just sort of looked upon as, it's just something you could do. EFL or ESL is definitely looked at in that regard, which is probably why there's very little respect. Well, that's the problem. That's why there's very little respect for that discipline, because people just think, you can just drop in. And I think I've mentioned this before, that I read somewhere a really funny quote about, I don't remember what article I was reading. It's a long time ago now, but this article said that a guy walks up to a school in sandals and shorts. I think the idea was this is Southeast Asia or whatnot. He walks up to school and says, can I have a teaching job? And the director says, why don't you walk down the road and ask the hospitals if they need any doctors? Just the concept of, not anybody can just do this job. You can't just walk up and be like, yeah, I'm a pro at this. It does take time and effort to be effective as a teacher. So getting back to the reflection, I guess. Oh, sorry, you had a point?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I was going to say that, with that sort of thing, it seems to be that it's, as you say, they're just trying to go for money, or that you get people who are like, well, this person would be a good teacher. And it's like, maybe, because there's something about a part of that attrition rate, and maybe it's because I don't reflect on that sort of thing. Usually when it came to teaching, I did stuff, people said things, I looked at other people, and I would see them doing things, and I'd be like, that's really good. I'm going to take that into my own kind of thing. And then the other thing was just to have fun while learning. That was, like, me personally, that was something, I guess that was my maxim, was to have fun while learning. Because if you can have fun, even if it's something you don't like, it still kind of sticks with you, because you have fun doing it. So.
Right.
But yeah, I'm sorry. That was my
No, it's fine. So just to the fact that reflection, I think, is kind of a key for a lot of people within their personal life and then also their professional life, because it does allow them the access to deeper thoughts in their brain often, and gives them that time to really figure out if this is the right thing for them or if they need to sort of veer off and do something different. I've always found that, generally speaking, if I don't like something, I will kind of keep pressing forward to a point, at least, where I'm really comfortable with, okay, I've gotten to this stage. Now I need to sort of move out because I've done enough and I can't really progress any further. Which I assume most people take that route, but I do also sometimes feel that I've known a lot of people that have gotten into things and just sort of burn out or give up. We all do. There's no denying that, or we all have these grandeur thoughts of I can do anything and I can learn anything, and the human mind is an amazing thing, and you really can, but it's all about that perseverance and avoiding the pitfalls and overcoming procrastination and all that kind of hurdles you have to jump over to get to a point of a personal success. And unfortunately, I also do believe that some people feel success only amounts to what other people view as a level of success, just in the sense of, okay, I'm only successful because other people believe I'm successful, which is kind of unfortunate.
That, or they feel that the only way that there is success is through
monetary acquisition,
right? Take YouTube, for example. Some people only see success as being, I've got the YouTube button. I mean, that can be a goal that you have for yourself, where you, I think the YouTube button's like 100,000 subscribers or something. Okay. That could totally be a goal.
Sure.
And if that's how you wish to define it, that's fine. But when you do stuff like that, you get into a rat race where you're trying to think of ways. It becomes less about you wanting to do it because you enjoy doing it, and more about trying to find ways to make other people enjoy your work. And like that's a pratfall for not just YouTube people, but also you see it in all forms of media. Look at fucking video games. Video games is a very good example of this. They want to talk about it being art and all this kind of nonsense, but in the same hand, there is a balance. There is a balance between doing art or doing work and then trying to make money. Right. When you're trying to make money, you shift towards that and you become less about doing work. That's just the unfortunate thing about it. As much as we love to make super duper awesome things, the savants are really the only ones that can kind of make that work.
Right.
Looking at you, Michael. Son of a bitch. But you don't really see that, especially nowadays. Nowadays, It's either you get people who have this real quick instant success and then it just kind of peters out real quick
Mm-hmm.
because they get so absorbed into trying to do that, and then
Yeah, no, I could see that. I think you're right. Sometimes you do start to try to cater to your audience or whatnot, and it sort of takes away from your creativity because you're just simply thinking, okay, I'm just going to continue this because it's been successful in this regard, rather than it's been successful to my personal development. It's just been kind of lost my train of thought there, but just that you well, just because I kind of broke it down, I suppose well enough. I don't have much more to say.
Right.
But
well, I was gonna say it's not to say that taking any sort of outside criticism or anything to ignore that. That's not what, or any feedback that way. That's not what that's saying.
Mhm.
It's just when you try to. Oh, well, I did this type of video, or I made this type of game, or I made this type of show or movie, and there's people doing it. Well, I've got to make more of it. Got to make more money, more views.
right. Squeaky chair returns.
Squeaky chair. Yep.
Squeaky chair agrees or disagrees. I'm not quite sure.
I think it was agreeing with me on that one. I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely probably the case for some people. I know for myself, I suppose the other thing though is when you are starting to try to develop something on your own or in a group or as a team, sometimes you do fail to take the steps to keep pressing forward due to the fact that you are concerned about criticism or you are concerned about failure. But failure is so much a part of that process. You have to fail a lot to get somewhere.
Right.
I mean, you can't. Yeah, we all have fears of failing and losing, but those are the fears that should be driving you to at least, if not complete that thing, at least drive you towards something else.
Well, I don't even think you should be fearing it. That's what I don't think you should be fearing anything. You just don't. Fear is the mind killer. That's. But you really. Failing is not particularly failing. Failing is not anything to fear or worry about when it comes to anything in life. I mean, yeah, okay, you buggered something up. Okay, you buggered up something to the point that you now die because you buggered something up. Well, you're dead. You don't have to worry about anything. You're dead. The end. I mean, I know that sounds kind of morbid, but hey,
you're just trying to tie back to that death episode. That's.
Well, like I would tell the kids that would get really like worried about buggering up something in class and be like, don't worry about it. I mess up English all the time. For example, and they would laugh about it because it at least made some sense. A friend of mine, we were taking a class and we'd hear there was somebody who would, instead of saying hantai, which means I disagree. He was saying like, "Watashi wa hentai desu." So he was like saying I'm a pervert, basically. Right? But it's really funny, and it's a good way to remember not to fucking bugger, or not to like mix those two up. It's a funny thing, and we mess up language all the time, and people don't understand that you mess up language all the time.
Sure.
There's no problem with it. That's what it's there for. We're not robots that just have perfection settings set. So when it comes to, I don't know. I know just that tangent, but just fear of failure, that should not be something that drives you, because you shouldn't have a fear about it. You should, I guess personally, it shouldn't be a fear of anything, but more of a desire to become a better you. That should be driving you. And failure makes you a better person. Or it will break you. That's true. And unfortunately, people break too much from just even simple failures, where it's just, a failure, even though relationships aren't simple, but, failure of a relationship.
Failures, remember your car keys.
Right. Where people, because it bogs down all these other things. Failure to remember, somebody's birthday or an anniversary or whatever. And it happens. I mean...
Well, now when you're talking about relationships, though, I think that's a little bit different aspect, right? Because maybe you're not so worried about the failure, but you're worried about the repercussions of the failure, because it's the interaction is going to be not likely positive. So.
True, but in the same hand, if like that, but that's up to the other person. The other person can either try to find ways to help somebody remember, or just let the problem build. And that's what it seems to be a lot of times. You get people, well, you forgot this, you forgot this, you forgot this, and they just add on to it. And that's not...
Well, I think it's potentially an easy defense mechanism, right? It's not me, it's you. So.
It's you. Right. Well,
doesn't matter. You can't improve your development.
Person being shitty. That's just a person being shitty because they're not... They're in a relationship with that person. However, they're not trying to help that person better themselves, which betters the relationship.
Right.
So,
relationships are key actually to personal development in a lot of ways.
You would think.
Well, I think they are, because even if they're negative, even if they're negative relationships, you should be able to accumulate some sort of skill or knowledge from that. Hopefully enough that you wouldn't continue to fall into those types of relationships, but
is that the fool learns from his own mistakes, the wise man learns from the mistakes of others.
Yeah.
So we're all fools.
What was that quote in like the worst James, one of the worst James Bond, Die Another Day, when he's what does Q say? Something like, you're smarter than your Bond says, like, you're smarter than you're looking. He's like, better than looking smarter than you are, something he says, or I forget. Remember. Anyways, it was such a bad movie. Right. That was not even passable.
That's the one with the Invisicar, right?
Yeah, that's the one with the North Korean guy that changed his face to look like a British mogul or something. It's pretty out there. It's not a very enjoyable one for me, at least. All right. Well, we've just talked about a whole bunch of stuff here. I just wanted to quickly touch upon something I recently did. Okay. I took a class here that I just mentioned to you briefly about sort of professional values and stuff, it was an interesting sort of class. But some of the stuff here was a challenge to not necessarily accept, but just more so bring about into a paper, because eventually we did have to write a final paper and stuff. Which was fine. You're bringing up these things that supposedly this, I presume is just sort of a computer program, but it's broken up into these 4 phases that sort of break down where you are as a leader, where you are as a person, and so forth. And it just had these really interesting values that apparently I am very strong about, such as equality and liberation is one here. I'm not going to read them all or anything, just a couple. Accountability and ethics. This was only in the phase 3 quadrant. There's a phase 4 here that's I didn't apparently resonate with very strongly, but it was interesting. It was just a survey that sort of broke all this stuff down. And of course, there's some of the stuff you read after and you're like, well, I don't necessarily agree with that, and that's fine, right? It's just an assessment on whatever the psychological scale is. But I think I have the option to do another one. I think I'm allowed to do a follow-up here soon, which I might do, but I'm not sure if I will or not. But it was interesting to just get some feedback, and it gave me this, so 7-page printout and telling about my moral and ethical choices and behavior under stress and this and that. And I was just kind of going through it again because I did this it's getting close to about a year ago now. Just funny, and it's like, when you're under stress, this or that, you go into a primal stage and this and that. I was just like, yeah, I don't agree with a lot of this. I think this is just, programmed in there. It's almost like a dirty horoscope or something. But some of it was still interesting. It was interesting to see, because even if I don't agree with it, it gave me an option in my own mind to at least, address it and think about it. I don't know if I would necessarily encourage anyone to do it. I suppose if you're considering doing one, find a good one. Maybe go through university or something to find one that's deemed worth your time. But I did enjoy it for the most part. I didn't enjoy writing the paper because, unfortunately, the professor is grading your paper, which is kind of silly because you're reflecting on the values you supposedly have and the values you wish you could improve upon. but the professor is giving you a grade on that. It's like, okay, like how the hell are you grading me on that sort of thing? Which was interesting.
Well, that's.
I would agree with your values. It was like,
right,
okay.
but that's part of the problem with academia. Part of the problem with academia in some circles is that, for case in point, somebody I like this guy. I like his type of firebrand and very well spoken. I don't know how much of he writes of it, but I personally like Razor Fist, and I don't know if you know who Razor Fist is on YouTube. But he goes into these, got some really good language. He pulls out some words that if you don't understand, well, you need to look them up because you won't understand his point. Which, that's fine. That's totally legit. Whatever. His type of firebrand is pointing out things and being really good, I would say, at extrapolating data. Case in point of, like, the history of comics and how they've sold and stuff, to project that on the history of video games and how they've been selling and stuff like that, with like special editions and everything. He's very, very intelligent about that sort of thing, and he talks about going into one of the higher-ended journalistic schools, or schools of journalism, and being told that he was wrong because of how he felt about certain things, because he didn't present it in the appropriate or the proper slant. That's psychotic. and that's when you get into these values things, and if you with this professor, if you have certain values that you think this is what you should be going for and stuff, and they're like, what? No, you should be going this other way. They could, theoretically fail you for that.
Yeah.
Or give you a worse grade for it. So it's kind of raises the eyebrow. Makes you go,
Right. Well, but still, it was, I mean, as I said, I still enjoyed it. It was worth the time and the effort to go through it and so forth. And still, it was interesting to find some of these potential skills that I can develop or that I already have that I wasn't even aware of and so forth. And yeah, I still think if someone is interested in it, it's worth checking out. You do have to usually pay, I don't know, however much, not exorbitant amount or anything, but
infinity dollars. Oh, 20.
I hope not, but this one certainly didn't cost that much. but that's another way you could sort of find some things about yourself that perhaps you don't know, right? One other thing I know for myself, and before we did this topic, I was just kind of curious. I punched in to just Google, wanted to see what would kind of come up about the topic of just personal improvement. It just sort of got me thinking about one thing that I personally do when I want to find things about myself or I want to challenge myself, is that I like to watch people. I just often watch people, whether it's other teachers, whether it's just people on the street, whether it's people in the park. My favorite is probably people in the airport. That's always an interesting one. But just watching people. Now, I know some people find that's really creepy or weird. That's just unfortunately how our society's sort of taken that context. But
the world is Sushi Zoo.
Yeah. But I do find it interesting to watch other people, because if you watch someone's behavior and you're appealed by it, you might try to mimic that or absorb that sort of into your own personality. And if it's something you really disagree with or really dislike, you're going to shun that away and not even want to be associated with that type of action. So I don't know if you do that, but I personally, especially as a teacher, I do like to do that. I think teachers really benefit greatly from being able to interact with each other within the classroom and being allowed to observe each other. Again, can be dicey, but I do feel that the education programs that are being put in place in North America and elsewhere are starting to encourage that and get people to be away from that shyness of, well, this is my class. I don't really want you to sort of invade my sort of territory. But I think people are starting to open their minds and thinking, well, yeah, it is a bit uncomfortable. However, it tends to actually improve everyone involved's abilities over time. So, but getting back to that point, I don't know if you like to observe people
I said that
in their natural habitat.
Right.
You
Right.
did mention that, but I mean, I guess
Right.
beyond that,
Outside of that,
sure,
no, I don't. I really don't.
people disgust you.
Yes, actually, everybody's got. No, it's just I don't know. Hmm. No, I just don't really watch people. When out and about, recently more than anything, out and about, I'll read things. I'll read books and stuff, and for me, that is hearkening to like personal improvement with writing. We can get into a little bit later, but so I'll read stuff and not to emulate it, but to at least like for example, some of those words I was using at the beginning. I read those in a book I just finished up. I was like, what the fuck are some of these words? You know? So, and that's what I'll do as an improvement is read and then get new words and then make a huge file on computer and stuff and be like, okay, click, clack, 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 clack. And, yeah, but I don't watch people.
Sounds so much worse when you're saying it, right?
Well, right, but I'm just not a...
No. I just mean that phrase, like watching people. It just doesn't sound good at all.
No, I guess observe, but observe has a very bit of a dissociative, almost like scientific, sterile
Yeah, but maybe that's what I want to go for, so more so than just watching people, I guess. Observing is you are making...
At least you're not ogling them.
You certainly don't want to be ogling people, because now you're entering a very different realm of creepiness.
Oh, but I don't know. I think it's just because I'm not a very personal person.
Well, that would seem to be a reflection of you, because if you don't enjoy sort of watching the interactions of others, then yeah, you're probably yourself not that interested in wanting to interact with others.
Well, no, because I don't mind interacting and talking with people, but I don't. But usually, but like me myself, I'm much more into like this is fine, and with a couple people and stuff, but more so one-on-one.
Right.
Like teaching is a bit different for me. I can compartmentalize that sort of thing and then go into that area where I'm comfortable being in front of people and kind of helping with that sort of thing. But personal stuff, it's more of just talking one-on-one just to get to know people better, because I guess me personally, I like to get to know somebody to understand maybe this is why they do what they do.
Sure. No, I understand that, but I think we're talking about maybe slightly different things, because when you're saying personal, yeah, honestly, you're going to have to speak with that person one-on-one. It's not going to really work in a group setting. At least you're not going to get very far, probably. Right. Perhaps in a professional setting, it might be different. And I guess what I'm getting at is it makes me carry myself a little bit differently around people. Knowing my environment and look, living abroad, I found that when you observe, for lack of a better term, the locals or whatever, the people, well, I can't think of a better word at the moment, but just, seeing the people that are from that place in their regular state or their natural habitat, if you will, kind of gives you the concept of how to behave in that society. And you can only get so much from reading. You can only get so much from paper. You can only get so much from people who have been there. So I just suppose that, you can learn a lot of different things.
Do it very subconsciously. Like, I don't know, just me, I think there's a study I was reading about, maybe not even a study, but just an article about how in America, because of the size of it and the population density and everything, people generally stand far apart from one another.
Yeah, I remember hearing something about this too, but in smaller countries, Korea's a great example. You can be walking on a sidewalk and they'll be right next to you, literally right next to you. There's plenty of space. People will walk into you sometimes.
Right.
There's a whole bunch of potential factors for that. I've read there's historical factors for that and all kinds of stuff, which is really interesting. But
some of it's the trusting.
Sure.
Because, you know, you can shoot somebody from afar, so it doesn't matter. But, you can also knife somebody up close, so it's, I guess that's where you get your enemies, you know, friends close, enemies closer sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But, I don't, maybe I do it subconsciously. I'm just
I would assume you
not
do it, yeah, subconsciously at least. I can't
not an
imagine you just
abrasive
ignore
person.
everybody.
Right.
Impossible.
I'm not an abrasive person,
Mm-hmm.
particularly when being like out and about. I don't want to say I'm shy, but I'm just kind of do my own thing. Just kind of, okay, I'm going to go to the store. Okay, I'm going to go visit this. Okay, I'm going to do this. So I'm not really like, you know, you see signs that say don't touch this. Okay, all right, I'm not going to touch it.
Right.
And I don't do because I think something that's broken down because of it is with all the like the selfies and shit like that. So you got people going, oh my god, I'm going to take up space and all this sort of thing. I mean, I see it more from seeing like, I guess I see it instead of I see what other foreigners are doing, and I think don't do that. That's I guess what goes through my head. I'll see other foreigners and I'll be like, or you know, when I was in Japan and stuff, I'd see other foreigners and be like, don't be like that asshole, son of a bitch. But
just to bring up really quick, do you remember a while ago? I think it was just you and I were having a discussion. I don't think we recorded this, but we were sort of talking about in Japan, foreigners are not that friendly to each other, generally speaking.
Right.
For whatever reason. And I was saying to you, well, in Korea, that's sort of the opposite. You see a foreigner, and every other foreigner's got to say hi to you for whatever reason. It's just this unwritten code or something. But in the last few years, there's been a massive change in that behavior. It's been sort of how you mentioned Japan is like. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. I wonder what sort of interactivity change has produced this almost negative standoffish behavior.
Well, I think if you get if you work together, you'll kind of congregate together. But
well, there's that. But these are just people on the street and stuff. This isn't necessarily at your workspace. This is more you just bumping into somebody wherever at the store or whatnot. But you know, I find that really interesting that in the time that I've been here, that such a change has happened. Now you see somebody and they just give you the stink eye of, you know, what the hell are you doing on my turf kind of face, and you're thinking, like, that's just kind of silly.
I think it's personally, from what I can gather, and just I always kind of wondered why they were here, and generally it reflected back to all of the times that I had studied and stuff, and all those other people, and then and not to sound like a dick or anything, but you get a lot of people who only care for, maybe in Japan's sake, only care for things like anime or games, or maybe they only care for the or like the music, like the
pop culture stuff.
Right.
Well, Korea's not much different, man. I mean, you got these dramas and that's what I kind of wonder. Right? That has exploded.
I kind of wonder if it's because that people only have this sort of interest in it. But then they're like, they don't really have any sort of interest in the other stuff, and usually, not to, like I said, not sound like a dick, but usually a lot of those people are just not really like interesting people.
Shallow?
Well, no, I don't want to say shallow. They're just I don't want to say interesting. They're just not people I jive with. Because I mean, if you only see them in a classroom, it's hard to say, you know, what about them.
Right.
But like when I went to school and the people that I knew that were learning Japanese and stuff, a lot of them were, you had a clique of drama people who were just all about wanting to create drama, which I don't give a fuck for drama. Drama's stupid. Yep. You've got people who were just like it was only about anime or games, or maybe just anime, or maybe just games, and so their purpose for playing was, or to get the ability to be able to watch or play things without subtitles, for lack of a better word. And so they just kind of stick to that. They don't ever go into thinking, well, some do. Some kind of jump into, well, I want to learn more about like the history or something like that. But I guess, yeah, there's at least shallow intentions when it comes to learning Japanese. Doesn't mean that if you start with just wanting to do that, you don't develop further from that. I mean, I don't know where I'm going with this. I am digging a very deep grave.
Well, I started the hole, so
Thank you.
I'm letting you keep digging.
Right. Well, but I mean,
but
that's
no, you're still on point here. You're still making some pullbacks to your development, right? In that,
right.
Are you just starting this endeavor because of one little thing, which is fine. It's usually how you have to start something. How far can you take it, though? Is it just going to be this narrow line with blinders on where you just focused on that one little piece of, knowledge or whatnot? Or can you sort of branch out?
And, the reasons behind it, there's plenty. Maybe they're interested in doing other stuff. Maybe whatever. But a lot of the people who were taking Japanese who continued it were more interested in other things about it. Mm-hmm. Where when I was first taking it, a lot of people were just either they wanted to get a Japanese babe or, no joke, wanted to get a Japanese babe,
surprising.
really into anime or really into games. Mm.
Well,
I don't know. I wasn't
I see what you're getting
really,
at,
heavy thinking, oh yeah, I want to get into, cause I didn't play a ton of games in high school. I was just kind of like, I was more into doing writing and stuff. So I kind of took Japanese more of like, oh, I played these kind of games and, it was more of a vindictive, I want to get back at Spanish. Ha! Fuck Spanish. And it was just retarded on my part to go that route. But that's kind of what I went into taking it for. And also just the challenge of a different language, because I like, the nuance of language. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, Spanish, there's a really cool, phrase. There's two different ones. One's, doesn't matter for what I'm thinking. This one's, basically translates out to, you dig your grave with your teeth. Mm. And that's
good.
That's some truth. Well, it's just like that sort of thing. I like that aspect more. And with Japanese, like, even though it's a very old saying, Nanji Oshire, know thyself. Like, I like that. Or, nothing ventured, nothing gained is translated in Japanese as, going into the tiger's den.
Ooh.
Yeah, to know or not if there's a tiger. It's like, yeah, great. That sort of thing.
Hard lesson learned.
Right. So, yeah, I guess that when people of course not all the time and stuff, but when some foreigners see other foreigners, I think that they might be hearkening back to that sort of thing where they see a lot of people who are only taking it for those reasons. Mm-hmm. And they wonder, because there's plenty of people that I know who took Japanese who, I think would really like it for these other reasons to be able to get there, but they weren't able to get there because you had these kind of people getting there. And I know that sounds wrong, but that's just personal experiences. I want to say that's why they have that kind of mentality.
That's possible.
So
also possible that, from my understanding, Korea is the cool cat and Japan's the old hat kind of thing now. It's supposedly so. Supposedly Korea is this magical, wonderful place that Japan used to be for a lot of people. A bit younger generations, I suppose, and stuff. So, just from what I've seen in media and so forth, it seems Japan's lost its luster. I don't know if that's really how I want to state it, but.
Well, look at the games. The games have shifted more towards Xbox. And
North American games production has improved a lot. And
the indie scene really heavily there too as well.
But anyways, that's a whole topic that we could just shove back in the closet for another 17 episodes or something.
So,
All right. Well, where should we sort of drive this bus
well,
to the next station here?
I am, I don't know. When you broached me with this topic, I was thinking of just things in general, not
That you want to personally improve on? Or?
right, right.
Look, and my goal with this was just to drive a discussion. It was never to be sitting here saying we know everything. Absolutely, we don't know everything about this.
I don't know jack
We never
shit.
could. We never could know everything about this because every individual has such a different life experience and whatever else, right? It's just sort of just engaging in what some people have done and what we have done and that sort of thing. So, yeah, we should definitely get into some stuff we'd like to improve personally and see if we have anything that's reflective of the other, I suppose. Well, there might be one that you and I might have both. I'm not sure, but I'll let you kick the can first.
Okay, I was to say one of them that I've thought about because I talked about how I talk is one where I get these long stretches of silence and I'm just like, wow, why am I so dumb?
Eloquent silences.
Eloquent silence. That's what it is. I'm building up. I'm ratcheting it up. But no, another thing is, and I've tried to get better at this, and I've actually with talking with some other people who are kind of on the same wavelength as me, or I'm on the same wavelength as them, is to, be much, and this is probably why I hate something like Earthbound. Mm-hmm. I know that's like a weird kind of, what the fuck are you talking about, Taylor? But,
I'm not too fond of.
Well, the big problem that I have is, and this probably comes back to what my cousin said, is that I became an old soul real quick as a kid. Where I grew up not too quick, but I grew up real quick, is that, I know what I like, and I enjoy that stuff. Now, friends and stuff, and, you suggested things, and this is not to, like, hamper on you, because you are a lot better about this than others, and I try to be better about this, but I know sometimes I'll just say it to just kind of, because I enjoy it, is to not, like, for example, with Earthbound, I always had friends try to tell me, man, you've got to play Earthbound, it is the best. Man, you've got to play, it's awesome. That is not a reason, because of the subjectivity of taste. You can't just say, well, I like this, and you're my friend, so you got to play it because I like this. Mm-hmm. To me, I guess now that I think about it, to me, it sounds kind of greedy or unaware of somebody else's tastes to be like, well, I like this, so you've got to like it too.
Or you hurt my feelings.
Right? Or you hurt my feelings. Yeah. Or you, don't understand it. And it's like, that's
even worse than you hurt my feelings.
Well, but you get people who say that, and it's just like, that's not it at all. I can profess all sorts of love that I have for the Lost Odyssey memory/dream sequences. Mm-hmm. Those, to me, are the apex for writing in a game. Mm-hmm. Because I find a lot of game writing to be substandard. That's just how it is. I don't find a lot of people who write the dialogues and write out the scenes are very skilled at what they're doing. I'm sorry, that's just, and I know I've just pissed off a lot of people saying that, but I'm not saying don't enjoy it. If you want to, that's fine. I'm not saying it's you are a worse person for enjoying it. No, not at all. But I'm not going to sit here and say you must play Lost Odyssey, or I think Johnny Millennium doesn't like the memory sequences. I'm not going to go up to him and be like, you've got to play it just for the memory sequences, and if you don't like it, you're a fucking asshole and all this kind of stuff. There's just no. I could, but that'd make me a big dick. Like my youngest brother, I've tried to kind of push him to play Dragon Quest 4. Mm-hmm. Or 5, excuse me, 5. It hasn't really worked out for him. Okay. But he came up and asked me if he could, start playing some of the, on my Wii because I have the Mega Man games.
Okay.
So I ended up getting him that 3DS collection of it for him to play.
Oh, Legacy or whatever it is.
Right. Because he expressed interest in it.
Right.
Because, and I'm not going to hound him to be like, I'll ask him.
You better play X Series after this.
Well, right. No, I kind of tease him. He actually played pretty damn good. Like, I passed him the game, and he started with 2, and he got to like the second to last stage.
Nice.
He got a lot of game overs, but he got to the second to last stage in a day.
Oh, that's pretty good.
And that's pretty good. That's good. But I mean, and I kind of tease him when I do see him. I'm like, I don't hear a credit roll, that sort of thing. But that's just fun kind of teasing. But I'm not going to sit there and be like, you have to play this because I really enjoyed it. He saw me playing it. He saw me blitz through 1 through 5 because those are the only ones on the Wii. I don't know why 6 isn't on there for the Virtual Console. But he saw me blitz through them, and he eventually got interest that way and expressed it. And I was like, okay. But I'm not going to sit there and be like, hey, the only reason why I suggest Dragon Quest V to him was it's kind of Pokemon-esque, and he loves Pokemon.
Maybe you should go for those Dragon Quest Monsters games.
Right, but I've never played them, so I'm like, I could say something, but I'm not going to be like, hey, you should buy this.
Yeah, no. I think those are supposed to be like Pokemon-style games, from what I understand. Anyways.
Well, there you go.
Anyways.
But, right, so my thing is that, yeah, that sort of kind of improvement is me trying to make sure that I don't just say, hey, you've got to play Trails in the Sky because it's a phenomenal series.
Mm-hmm.
I can say that, but I'm not going to press that on you and be like, Sushi, have you played Trails? Why haven't you played Trails? Why are you such an asshole? Why haven't you played this? Oh my god, you don't even know what the battle system's like, bro? Come on. And it's just, it's...
You've certainly brought it up a few times, but never in that light.
Well, right, but for me, that's a thing to improve on, because I know there's been instances where I have done that, where
yeah, but everyone does this at some point.
Right.
If you're excited about something and you really enjoy it, and you have close friends and stuff that enjoy a lot of the things that you enjoy, or even you just respect them in a certain way, you're going to probably at some point suggest things to them. It's just a matter of fact.
But there's
it's how you go about doing it.
Right. There's a difference between us suggesting something and being aggressive about it to the point of, I'm going to admonish or voice my displeasure because you aren't doing that thing that I told you about because it's so awesome. And
you're no longer awesome. We can no longer be friends.
We can no longer be friends.
You're out of the family.
I know Greg and I have talked about this before, and we've kind of hit that, I think, and like I said, you're pretty good about it, and you do go out on a limb, but it's never in a malicious intent. You just kind of go out on a limb on it.
Well, sometimes I just sort of be like, here you go.
Right.
Like, try this.
Right, like,
There's a really good example of, I sent you Ultimate Ghouls and Ghosts for the PSP at one point.
Mm-hmm.
I got it really cheap, and I already have the game, and I got it really cheap, and I was like, who can I send this to that doesn't have this? And I was just found him, and it's like, okay. I was like, yeah, Taylor. It's like, he does sort of like some pretty difficult games sometimes and stuff, and it's like, I'll just throw it at him and see what he thinks. And I think it was like a few days later or something, you did get it, and you were like, you're not expecting me to play this for a portable, are you? I was just like, no. I just
True. I did think I said something like that.
Yeah, but I didn't think I was
did
like,
give it a try. Right. I have given it a try.
Love that cover art.
It's cool. Like I'm not a big Ghost and Goblins thing, so it's different to me. But it's not bad.
Yeah, but no, that was an example.
You're not like friendship ruined because you don't like play that. But that's what and I'm not saying I was ever at that point, but I would. You got to have a delineation between suggesting something because you understand somebody else, or even on a whim. That kind of goes into this as well. Or you either go out on a limb and be like, hey, if you want to try it, or somebody else enough to be like, I think you might like this because XYZ.
Right.
As opposed to, I love this game because ABC, fucking play it. ship it.
Yeah, I think that's the sort of draw line is you have to really be in tune with what the other person is all about. If you're just trying to project yourself into somebody else, it's never going to work. That's basically
Even though, what is it, Aristotle? A friend is another self. Totally fucking lying. Friend is a friend. Yeah, could be wrong. That might be Aristotle, but that is something that like is something I've not reflected on to try to improve on, but just something I've just tried to improve on myself after seeing and having it done to, because that's why I hate Earthbound. I hate Earthbound because people said it was so great and that it's so awesome and that you'll like it. And it's like, no, I don't, because it's not my humor. It's not the kind of game that I like.
Yeah, when you're saying that, because I only played Earthbound for a few hours, and I still have it, and I might try it again at some point, but I don't know who these people were, but they clearly don't know you very well, because I could have told you right away Earthbound is not for you. That's just and there's sometimes you get surprised, right? Sometimes you think you suggested something to somebody just again on a whim or whatnot, and you think, yeah, they probably won't really like it, and sometimes they come back to you just, wow, it was amazing. I wouldn't really see that with Earthbound.
I could possibly, and here I will put this in a stipulation: the Earthbound 3 or Mother 3 for the Game Boy Advance. I have more inclination to play that just because of the dichotomy of the villain and all that sort of stuff. Because I've actually looked into it, but odds are with the quirkiness of it, I'll have to grit my teeth through it, and I may not like a lot of it, but I would be curious to see how that all plays out with the villain and the reveal of who the villain is, who the villain truly is, and stuff like that. So how about yourself? What is something that either you're in the process of, or...
Well, one thing I think for myself is just try to work on compartmentalizing a lot of things. I can be very disorganized with a lot of my time and just my materials and all this sort of stuff. So I've tried really hard to maintain a little bit better focus in a narrow sense of just, here's where I got to sort of manage my things. Time management is not so bad, but it's just sort of, and I don't really get really flustered, but I'm one of those people, like, the door's open, I'll try to push 50 things through the door at once because I can't, right? I'd like to try to work on for myself of just sort of getting things a bit more streamlined into a flow rather than just a gush of water coming at you. So I've been trying slowly to piece things together, and for working, when I work on things, I find that I take big, long chunks of time to try to do something because I can't focus really narrowly on each little component. I'm too busy trying to look at the big picture all the time rather than, okay, I already know what the big picture is. Now I got to do these little segments to push forward to that final goal. So I've been trying to maintain a better grasp of that. And some people are really excellent at it, and I don't ever really feel jealous of people like that. I just feel I should improve myself to be more organized in some ways. I've always sort of thought that you were a bit more organized than me in a lot of ways. Again, and I wouldn't say it's out of jealousy, but I sort of respect that out of you and some other people that I know, and
it's a neurosis.
Strive to do better at that. I think people look at me and they just think, wow, this guy's a complete calamity. Like, how does he get anything done? And I can see that. And sometimes there's benefits to that, right? Because you're almost a bit unpredictable. So sometimes the unpredictability allows you to engage in a different way and get things done faster in some ways, or just get things done in general, because sometimes people who are way too focused just can't get past something because they get hung up, right? Like, oh, no, it's got to be A, B, C, D, and if I don't get through A, B could never happen. It's got to be A. Sometimes it's like, I'll just walk around A and go to C. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I would say more often than not, though, it's much better to follow a little more sequence. And so I'm trying to work towards that as best as I can. As you know, I'm trying to do a little more personal writing on the side and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a little too broad. I'm sure you get that notion from me when I do tell you something and it's sort of like, yeah, I got this idea. And whether it's a good or bad idea doesn't really matter so much as the fact that it's just a big idea. And it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. The idea's there. Now work towards the idea.
And something that Matt, and for those who are listening don't know, he was on one of or I think two of the TGS recordings.
He's on both the TGS. Well, sorry,
okay.
2. Yeah.
Did we have another one? Or
I
at
think
least
we had 2. I think.
Okay. All right. So
long time.
a long time ago, and I've talked about this before, and it's not to take away from having the idea, but he said it before, is that everyone has ideas,
right?
And it's how you implement the tools that are available to you to get those ideas and make them into a reality.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like, I think I've been much more of the sequential person in a worse state before, where I would be like, I can't get past B. Oh, fuck it, I'm done.
Yeah.
Paper, I think I've gotten better to where, I don't know this at the point in time, I'll just kind of do something else and then come back to it, sort of thing. But, I think that's why when you give these ideas, they can be fantastic ideas. It's just, how are we going to work out the ways of making the idea a reality and sort of thing. Right. So,
which is, that's because. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Go. I was going to say another person we're working with on the game. It's kind of like that. Got some really fantastic ideas, but then it's like, you've got to implement these, and this is a nightmare. So.
Yeah, it's understandable. I think that's sometimes why I can work well in a team, though, is because, if I have those people that are very directive in a pattern or in a line of some sort, I can just sort of be that force that's around it. And, I kind of fill in the gaps, right?
Right.
And so I feel sometimes I can be a good team player in that regard of just, okay, we need to do this. Bam, you can do this because we can count on you and we know you can do this while we're sort of implementing the main strategy or whatever. And I'm okay with that. I'm one of those people that I'm not like, oh man, I got to be at the front of the line all the time.
Sushi's a very competent healer.
A red mage?
Or a red mage, yeah. Or,
don't give me ninja.
Whatever.
Those ninjas they're pretty bad.
Whatever the ones that are good for, like, boosting stats and stuff.
Oh,
could be one of those kind of
support
unit,
characters or whatever. Yeah. But at the same time, I don't mind being at the front. It's just that I think sometimes people can't handle it when I'm at the front of a leadership role, because I do it very differently than other people. And I'm also generally quite accepting of other opinions coming into that. And sometimes you're like, well, you're supposed to be guiding us. It's like, well, yes and no. Sometimes that sort of leadership doesn't actually work. Sometimes you need to distribute it amongst groups of people that have specialized skills in different ways. And yeah, there's still somebody kind of at the top, but their leadership skill is to basically just allow the other people to have leadership ability. Mm-hmm. They're just sort of
they give the
guiding force,
bonus leadership points to the
right. They're the extra leadership badge +1 or something. So,
right.
So, but anyways, yeah, I'd like to sort of help improve my focus. That's why I like working with you with some stuff too. Is again, I think we're quite opposite in some regards. That you push me to be a little bit better in some ways, and I try to push you in other ways. So.
And I am like a boulder, slow and not very.
You're a boulder in the river, and I'm the river, and you're slowly eroding,
being ground into dust.
Right, what do you got next?
Well, I was gonna say, like, real quick, what are you doing to compartmentalize better? What are some ways that you're?
A lot of it right now is just really simple things, such as managing that my desk is fairly clean. Just, I know it sounds really dumb to some people, but just having a clean desk, generally speaking, my desk is just, it's really crazy. Right now at work, it's actually really bad because I've let it get a bit bad. But at home, it's very clean and tidy. I'm not quite writing down lists of what I need to do every day, but I am trying to focus on making sure that certain tasks are met well before the deadlines. Just for example, like let's say, okay, actually this week I have to go to immigration to just update my visa. So, I made sure well in advance that I had the documents necessary so that when I go in on Thursday, I'm not scrambling for anything just before it's been taken care of, a fair amount of time before.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it is just simple things that a lot of people are just very skilled at doing and always do. And I just don't. Yeah, okay, here I am, kind of thing. And I'm trying to just, avoid that when possible. Building a little bit stronger routines, but still having enough flexibility to allow for alterations to the routine.
I gotcha. I was just curious. I didn't know.
Yeah. That is a fair question. Some people just say shit and then they're like, so what are you actually doing?
I'm doing stuff. Yeah.
I'll be right back. It's like that Simpsons where, anytime somebody asks Homer something and he literally runs out, you hear the door slam and he gets in his car and it drives away. You ever seen that?
Yeah.
It's probably been running on that show as a gag for however long that show's been on, 25 years or whatever. Such a great gag. Right. But still funny.
Making lists is I'll do that sometimes when I need to refocus. If I feel like I'm kind of in this malaise, or if I'm just kind of meandering around and not really trying to basically refocusing, I'll be like, need to go back to basics. Okay, today get XYZ PDQ done right now. But or that day or something like that. Other times I don't really need that. Like routines are one thing, but I don't like this. One of the routines I sort of have is to try to make sure I write or read an hour a day. It's just because it just kind of keeps me into it, and even though I may not be writing, at least I'm reading, and if I'm not reading, well, I'm writing. Sweet. So and it's kind of helped a lot because I've gotten into this habit of not really I was kind of talking to you a little bit before we started recording, but I'm playing a little bit of Dragon Quest VI, going back through it and seeing if I do hate it as much as I say I do, and I've only put in about an hour and a half, 2 hours in the week or so I've been playing it, so just kind of very chippity chip. But outside of that, I have had little desire to play video games. I've just it's gotten to the point where I'm just like, I got other stuff I need to do. So and that's just kind of, I guess, with the refocusing and just kind of get on that and. Routines, and so, like you mentioned your desk. My desk is a pigsty. It is a blob of, I've got like a harmonica, I've got ground turmeric, got books.
I'll take a picture of mine at work and I'll send it to you. It's pretty impressive. No old food or anything like that, but just
I don't have old food. It's
books
just
and stuff.
I have seasonings. I seriously have 3 separate towers of books. Ones that have been read, ones that I still need to read, ones that I still need to read, but no, I still need to read, but if I were to put them all together, it would be a tower that would fall over. So, yeah. I got Kirby staring at me.
Cat somewhere on there.
I think Cat's somewhere else right now, but the cat has tried to sit up here, and dude, you've got way too much stuff up here.
That's your only deterrent.
That's probably what it is, because for whatever reason, the cat likes me and then jumps on my lap. It's like, hey, buddy, how you doing? I'm going to pester you. It's like, really? I'm busy. And then, yeah. So, goodness. Let's see, something else that I would really like to improve on is everything. Just but would be one thing, and that is with writing, and that is the frequency of which I write. Because, like I said, I try to read and write, but the problem is I would get to a point where I would just not write for a month and be like, okay, but when I get into those long stretches of just not wanting to do that, it won't naturally come back to me. I have to force myself back into it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's work in a way, and even though I enjoy it and I get lost in doing it and stuff like that, you gotta I've gotta force myself into it a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But since I've been doing this thing of at least read or write a day, if not more, it has made it a lot easier to get into writing. So, and I don't know, just writing itself, I love to write dialogue, but there's times where there's certain details of things that I get kind of bored writing. I'm not a big fan of here's really hyper detail about a room
Right.
or something. Like I like to write maybe details about like the historical context or something, and I'll write like 4 pages about that and be like, oh, that was so much fun. And then people who've read that, they're kind of like, this is cool, but we're kind of lost. And I'm like, well, it'll make sense later. And then I've been asked to get like an anthology sort of thing, so people have a better idea of that sort of thing and stuff. So, that would be something for me, is like writing and getting better with details or just because I guess that's what I'm saving for when I edit it again, because I write it out by hand and then I do a soft edit or like a real quick first edit when I type it out. And after I finish the story that I'm working on, I'm going to go back and edit it again and read through it and then cringe at every page and every fuck up and all that sort of stuff. Like hell, I was just kind of skimming through just one of those chapters, and I found I used the wrong there. And but the thing is that right, you're right. I'm typing and stuff, and then all of a sudden, I'll have it written right or written correctly, and then I type it out, and I'll just type something different. I'm like, I look at it, I'm like, what? Like, it just completely. And part of it's that I'm doing the soft edit, so there are things that I'm changing around and stuff, and I'm just like, stupid.
No, that's totally normal. When you're writing anything, it just brain sometimes skips words because sometimes you're reading it out as you write it or whatnot, and you just forgot to write the word. Simple words, it and so it's usually those kinds of things. It's just it's all right.
So that would be something. I mean, I know you said that you've kind of started getting into a bit more personal writing and stuff. So I don't know how you're attacking it quite. I mean, you've told me about some of the ideas and stuff.
Yeah.
But outside of some of the ideas and notes you've jotted down, I'm not quite certain where you are with that sort of thing.
Well, I've just started to get back into it. I've been working on other stuff until recently, so I've not really had much opportunity until, well, I'd say maybe this week, and even then I kind of got bogged down with some other stuff. But it's still, a lot of it is still just kind of swirling in there, and I think the first thing I have to do is I got to go buy like a very focused just notepad. I need to have like a notepad that's just only for that one idea. You can't just be trying to shuffle through a whole bunch. Maybe you get a couple notepads so you can sort of work on different ideas at different times. But I think that's the first thing I got to do within the next few days, so I can just sort of, I'm like you, I tend to like to write down, depending on what I'm doing. If it's like an academic paper or something, I'd rather just start typing it out, going through resources, reading them, pulling the ideas out, maybe jotting them down by hand, like page numbers and stuff like that. But generally when I'm writing the actual work for something in that realm, I'd rather just start typing it out, edit it that way. But if it's just more writing down some sort of story idea or something like that I want to work on, I'd rather do it by hand like you, because then I can just sort of have this big chicken scratch with all kinds of bubble notes here, there, and everywhere. And some people work really well on the computer and that they can't even be bothered to write stuff down. But
Right.
and some people just can't, right? We're so used to the handwritten work that we're just not quite as comfortable making.
I know I don't have the mental dexterity to do that sort of thing, and it's probably harkens back to how I talk on this sort of thing. Is that with writing, and this is something that writing, because of the time it takes to write out something, it allows the brain to kind of come up with better combinations for stuff, or to work out in your head what you should put next.
Mm-hmm.
And like me with the story, I've got manila folders is what I use. I don't quite use notepads. I use manila folders to write on like blank sheets of paper for different kind of notes and stuff. Like genealogies, or okay, these are some of the characters, or this is what the setting looks like, and all this kind of stuff, and throw it all into a manila folder. So if I need to harken back to it at all, I can just kind of pull out something and be like, oh, okay. But with the story, the reason why I like to write it out is because it gives me that chance to think of something next, or what I want to say, but also, or what I want to write, but also, if I delete something on a computer, it's gone.
That's true.
If I write it out, I can just cross it out, and I only write in pen. So I'll just cross it out and then be like, okay, this is not a good idea. And if I need to, I can harken back to it. Because generally it's stuff like there's pages where I just put an X through it because I'm like, yeah, this is terrible. X, X. Yeah. But if there's some idea or thought that comes out of it, I can go back to it and be like, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if I already have the foundation set with it handwritten, I can actually add more to it easier through typing it out. Just because then I can just put in, okay, I have the thought. What more thoughts do I have now? Okay. Right. So, nice. That's the insight into the psychotic writings of Taylor. So, woo.
Fair enough. All right. Well, I'm only going to add one other one here. And this is just sort of a really simple thing. And that's, for a long time now, I've really had a keen interest in learning a bit more about just music in general. Writing musical notes and sheets and just tones and sounds and chords and that sort of thing.
Right.
I haven't had any opportunity to really look deeply into it, but I'm kind of starting to consider within the next few years, maybe I'd like to try to make at least some sort of deadline of maybe 2-3 years to maybe get into a piano class or something of that nature. I'm probably leaning towards piano, even though some other instruments are a little more accessible and easy to take with you, such as a guitar or flute or whatnot. But something about the piano is just very keen for me. At this moment, it's not really possible for me to get involved in that sort of thing, but it's always been something in the back of my mind. I never had the opportunity as a kid, money and so forth. Just didn't really produce the chance to try. And I don't even know if I'm very musically adept, but I would just like to give it a shot, right? Like I'd like to just learn a little bit more about the music discipline. So
is this the one that you're referring to? That
I think that you might have a bit of interest in. But yeah, I don't know if that was necessarily true. I just kind of, for a little while, I've had that impression just from things you've said and so forth. Whether that's true or not is maybe not, but.
Oh no, it's totally is. There's like I've looked into trying to read sheet music and stuff, the different things that even though it's not quite the same, but like the Family Tracker
Right.
application and stuff, made just a couple little tunes with that real quick, just kind of testing it out and getting used to it. Like there is a piano here, but I don't. It's not like a straight up string piano, but it was one of those kind of piano things you plugged in.
Some sort of keyboard, or?
Yeah, we had it as a kid, when I was a kid, and I don't know how long we had it, but as a kid, I was just kind of beep, 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 just playing around with it. But then, ended up stopped doing that and just kind of going outside and playing and stuff. Part of it also being because of where we live in, it was deemed annoying. But no, I'm with you. It makes me jealous of people who had the opportunity to play it. Cause I, did outside of just having it there, I just kind of hit it, but didn't have anybody to teach or anything. So, and nor did really have the money to have somebody to teach me.
Right. That's the big key, I think, because a lot of kids I don't know about Japan, but in Korea, a lot of students here do go to private music schools, learn piano, flute, violin. I've had the odd kid say they've done guitar, but I kind of think they were lying. I don't think they were actually telling me the truth. I think they just wanted to sound cool. But definitely piano and definitely violin in particular. A couple of kids doing drums, which is kind of neat.
Okay.
Not the traditional drums. Korea's got the very old traditional big drums, the big percussions. But just, the standard rock band drums kind of thing. Yeah, I don't know if I'm necessarily jealous, or just it just when I hear something, and I'm not even that interested in music. Like I don't really care about pop music and that sort of thing. I've started to kind of get a little interested in classical music here and there, not greatly, but a little bit. I just think it's such a fascinating piece of the human connection in a way. So many people have that deep-seated feeling for what music is to them and stuff. And I guess that's where that drives from. And maybe I will sort of introduce music into my life. Music was a thing at one point, but for a long time I just haven't cared about it. So maybe if I'm producing something myself, I'll gain more insight and desire to appreciate other music as well.
Yeah, like I was able to take like a Balinese gamelan music class.
Oh.
Where we actually got to play like the gongsa and different instruments, the steel drums and stuff like that. And
steel drums.
Yeah.
Such an interesting thing. Just all I can think of is like, just guys rocking out.
Right? not quite, but I mean, it was cool because with the keys, it's kind of like a xylophone.
Right, it's huge, right? Like,
well, some of them. There's some of them that only have 5 notes. There's some of them that have, I can't remember how many. They have I think it's like 15 or 18 notes.
Okay, because I saw one I stayed in Bali, and there was one in the hotel, and once in a while somebody would just come by and you'd be walking around like, what does that sound?
Ding.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Well, we had to actually perform at the end of the class. I think a few of my friends went and seen it, but it was something that was really fascinating because, I did cross country and track and stuff, but I never had the kind of absent-mindedness when I did the performance because it's with a group of people, and we didn't do anything wrong because teacher didn't come up to me afterwards and be like, "Wow, Taylor, you really fucked that up." It was just, we did really well. I don't remember anything from it. I remember getting ready and being ready for it and everything, and then sitting down, and then all of a sudden, applause. That's it. Like I was so in the zone. It was weird. But you take those xylophone type instruments, because there's a couple different kinds, and you have a hammer, and you hit the hammer on a note, and when you hit the second one, you clamp down generally on the first note. It's just a really cool way of playing it, and like the sound, I always kind of think of it as like a dark, twisted carnival. It's like I think it's cool. Like some, I could see that type of music being used in like the transitioning stages in Silent Hill or something like that.
Or the game Carnival.
Sure.
It was a really bad shooter that came out in the early 2000s. I don't remember who produced it. Maybe Atari? I forget. Carnival.
Yeah,
It's pretty bad.
No. Stop it. But it's just because it's just the sound of the metal. It's got a bit of a hollow sound to it, but in the same hand, because it's not just one, it's a symphony of other ones there, and the steel drums and
Aren't
some
of
other
them made of wood?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think the one that I saw was made of wood. So
it's just, I don't know. I really like that sound, and having done that, it was just like a really cool thing that just added to the lamentations of, man, I really wish I knew how to fucking play music. Because you don't really need to read it, because you can just, the teacher taught was, here are the keys listed from 1 to 12. I think maybe that's what it was, 12 or something. Mm-hmm. And so you played it that way. So you hit 4, 5, 4, 5, 4, 5. And so a lot of it's kind of going back and forth. And so it was fun. Music, yeah!
Well, it's always good to have those aspirations to do something that's either sort of tickled your fancy for a long time or just something you've just recently stumbled upon. And there's probably plenty of other things that we could continue on at this point, but some stuff's over the head at this point of time, and it's getting a bit late for me, so that's probably why I can't think of anything else. But yeah,
yeah,
pretty good discussion there.
Mm-hmm. And if anybody else wants to add to it, totally comment, send me messages, send me direct messages.
Sure.
Let's have a conversation.
Give us some feedback on strategies you have for helping your personal improvement.
Right. Totally.
Or how badly we are failing at our own personal improvement.
Right. I wish I could remember his name. There was I don't know if this is like not quite the truth. Can't even think of the word of it at the moment. But that's not a misnomer. But falsely remembered or credited. But there was like a really famous violinist who, up until his 90s, was still practicing like a couple hours a day. And when asked why he still practiced, and his comment was, "Because I think I'm finally starting to see some improvement." So I'll try to make a note to find that and link that, because I've seen it before and I've heard other people reference it. I'm trying to remember where I heard that from, but probably like Joe Rogan or something. But yeah.
Nice.
So it's always good always room for improvement.
Sure, I would hope so.
Right.
Expand your capacity.
Do it. So, is that it? Anything you want to add?
No, I think that's it for me. I just wanted to say thanks again. It's been a while since we did this, so it was really good to get one out.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah. More to come. In the future. So, thanks for listening. Have a good one. Enjoy your day, week, month, whenever this does come out. And we'll catch you later.
I had to throw in a classic Taylor. Do it.
Right.
Sometimes I'm seriously at work and that'll come up in my brain. I'm not kidding. Do it.
Do it.
The thing is,
I don't even know where I got it from.
I don't know where you got it from, but there was a little supermarket right next to where I lived when I first moved to Korea. It's called Kokiri Mart, which is Elephant Mart. And they just played the weirdest... Kokiri.
Forest?
Well, it's elephant in Korean.
I know, but isn't that Zelda? The forest?
Yeah, maybe in what's that
The
game?
Fairy Forest? Ocarina of
The one
Time?
we both hate. Yeah, Ocarina of Time. Yeah, it's something like that, right?
Okay.
I don't know. Anyways,
Anyways.
so there's this stupid mart, and they'd always have just random music, and it was usually sort of dancey techno music.
Oh, dear heavens.
And they had this one time we were there, and I don't know what the song, but it was like, "Move your body, everybody." It was really bad. Like, I don't know what it was. And every time I hear like you say, do it, I think that move your body, everybody. This is at like 10 o'clock at night, and it's just blasting. And near my house now, there's this little meat shop, really small meat shop on the corner, and they're always playing something. It's usually K-pop music, but sometimes they play nightclub techno music, and some people were calling it disco meats for a while because they just have speakers on the outside of the shop. They don't even have the speakers on the inside. They're only on the outside. They play music out in the street.
I hate that so much.
It's not really, really loud, but it's just kind of funny. You walk by and you're like, what the hell? This is sometimes, 9 o'clock in the morning.